Never-Ending Chain by Dragon Translator. Chapter 22. It was not a competition. It took all of the dragon riders, even Torgir and Firestorm, to round up all of Sven's sheep. They had scattered far, some even managing to cross the 2 bridges that connected the village to the rest of the island, and one managed to fall down the well. Thankfully, those inland were held up by helpful gronkles, and the one in the well was kept from drowning by Ringfire using her tail to keep its head above the waterline. Hiccup had to remember to thank Iggy and Buttercup for racing over to the Whispering Death when they realised Fenn's prized black sheep was in the well. "How many did you get?" Hiccup heard Snotlout ask as Toothless hovered to drop the last sheep, the one from the well, into the rebuilt pen. Hiccup frowned. "It wasn't a competition," he said as Toothless glided to land outside the pen. The sheep huddled together in the middle of the pen, but at least they were not bleating in fear. Although they could have been scared speechless, Hiccup was not sure. They did seem to twitch each time they caught sight of one of the dragons ringing the pen. Well, except for the black one. He just stared at Toothless. "Herky and I caught 3. Snotlout continued as if he had not heard Hiccup. Astrid snorted. "That was 2. You snatched the 3rd one from Fishlegs." "Hey, all's fair in sheep corralling." "It was not a competition," Hiccup cried. To everyone's surprise, Geeta and Shadowfire began to cackle. "What is so funny?" Astrid asked. "Yeah," Ruff said. "We want to know the joke too." Geeta snorted. "It's a future thing," she said, wiping her eyes. "You could stop laughing at us," Snotlout said, crossing his arms over his chest. "I'm not laughing at any of you," Geeta returned. "I just know what this turns into." "What?" Fishlegs asked. Geeta grinned but shook her head. "Hiccup, is there anything else you need from me?" Hiccup frowned. "No, why do you ask?" "I need to speak with Mrs. Thorsten before Shadowfire and I begin our patrol." Hiccup tilted his head. He glanced towards Ruff and Tuff, but neither twin reacted to Geeta's comment. In fact, Ruff seemed to find her fingers interesting, and Tuff looked like his mind was elsewhere. Hiccup looked back to Geeta. "I have no need of you," he said. Geeta tipped her head. Shadowfire bowed to Hiccup before rising into the air and banking back towards the village. "Who has patrol with Geeta and Shadowfire?" Hiccup asked. "We do," Ruff said. She looked to her brother, but he still looked like he was physically sitting in the saddle, but not with the rest of them at all. Ruff frowned. She shifted and kicked her brother. Hiccup shook his head when Tuff fell off Belch's neck. "Ow! I am hurt! I am very much hurt!" "It wasn't even that far down," Ruff protested. "Besides, you should have seen it coming. I didn't immediately kick. I paused for half a heartbeat at least." Tuff grunted but stood. Belch lowered his head and Tuff climbed back into the saddle. Ruff stared at him, eyebrow lifted. "What's up with you?" she demanded. "You're not acting like Tuff." Her eyes narrowed. "You're not Gruffnut pretending to be Toughnut, are you?" "What? No!" Tuff looked towards Hiccup. "You need us any more, boss man?" Hiccup blinked. No." "Good. Come on, Buff. Belch. I've got something I need your help for." "Hey, what about me?" "You can come help too." "Better. Let's go." Buff and Belch tipped their heads towards Hiccup before rising and heading back towards the village as well. Hiccup saw Fishlegs shake his head as if to remove something from his ear. Snotlout had his helmet covering his eyes. Astrid was pulling a Geeta and rubbing the bridge of her nose. "Sometimes I wonder about those two," Finton said, walking away from where he had been speaking with Sven and his wife. Ever since the Flightmares cleared Finn Hofferson's name, many in the village had turned to Finton for home and fence repairs. Hiccup did not understand why that caused Old Man Jorgensen to glare at Finton each time Astrid's cousin was in the other man's sight. Hiccup made another mental note to ask his father when he and Astrid returned to the village later that day. "We all wonder about those two sometimes," Fishlegs muttered. He looked to Finton. "Do you need a lift back to the village, sir?" Finton glanced between Fishlegs and Torgir and smiled. "Torgir, why don't you and Firestorm come back with us?" he said. "I need both of you to help me with something." Torgir looked towards Hiccup. Hiccup smiled and tipped his head. The young boy and his dragon had done everything asked of them. They had remained on the ground unless all other dragons were in the sky. They had helped keep clean the lean-to Brynja and Finton built for all the dragons, now called the Hoversons' house home. Hiccup knew he could trust them to fly back to the village even if not all the riders would be going along. "You and Firestorm are closer now than you were when you started flying," Hiccup said. "Stay near to Fishlegs and Meatlog." Torgear beamed and Firestorm chittered happily. The nightmare youngling bowed to Hiccup, then looked towards Meatlog. Hiccup knew the dragon was waiting until Meatlog rose first, but could also see from the slight bouncing that Firestorm was eager to fly. Hiccup blinked when Hookfang bowed to him and rose with Meatlog and Firestorm. "Let's go, Hooky. I need food in my belly, and to tell Mum we won the sheep-getting competition before we do our harbour patrol." Hiccup's confusion cleared. He looked towards Astrid and she grinned. Hiccup smirked. "Shall we?" he asked. In response, Astrid tapped Stormfly's neck. The Nada chirped, did a half bow towards Hiccup, then shot skyward. Toothless and Sharp cackled when Hiccup spotted. Toothless rose and then soon caught up with the other pair. They stopped at Lorekeeper's cave, finding the nightmare staring at the sky. The dragon turned and bowed to Hiccup. "Alpha, I was about to ask a tiny fang to pass along a request." "Oh? What request?" "I needed a moment of your time, my Alpha. A storm brews in the north, and it shall head this way." Hiccup blinked. "One of our kind had his skull fractured by a dragon, and now wears a bucket on his head. Whenever a bad storm is coming, his bucket tightens. It was doing so at dawn. The worse the bucket tightens, the worse the storm. Dad suggested I come to warn you all to settle in, as it is likely to be a bad snowstorm." "Sad that the male had to endure such an injury, but it is good that the ancestors brought something positive out of it. If his bucket allows your kind to know of the storms." Hiccup hid his smile when Lorekeeper slowly had to pronounce the word bucket. "Do any of your kind need shelter?" he asked instead. "We humans will likely bunker down in the Great Hall. There's enough space for all the humans and many of the dragons in there." Lorekeeper smiled. "Those without a sufficient enough shelter are either staying with other dragons that do, and allowed the company, or are going to the tiny Fireglow's cave. They've graciously allowed most of the nest to stay there." Hiccup breathed a sigh of relief. He had worried about the dragons, but Lorekeeper's words put his fear to rest. They had places to go, and would be safe until the storm blew over. "When the storm is over," Hiccup began, "if any need help cleaning up or fixing their homes, have a terror come to the village. We will all help." Lorekeeper tilted his head. "Will the humans' dens not need the same?" "Probably, but we can all hang out in the Great Hall until the village is back in order. We've done it before." Hiccup grimaced when he remembered what the reason was for the last time. He coughed and rolled the back of his neck. Lorekeeper blinked. "I get the feeling that brought an unpleasant memory to the surface." No, wasn't the only reason our dens needed repair at times," Hiccup whispered. Lorekeeper sighed. "The war?" Hiccup jerked. "That and my overzealous attempts to help," he whispered. "I think I did more damage than the dragons did." His gaze lowered, but he felt something rub against the top of his head. He looked up. Lorekeeper ran his chin across the top of Hiccup's head again, purring all the while. "Younglings tend to cause more damage when they are trying to help, especially when they do not know how to, than any invaders to a nest." Lorekeeper whispered. "That you wanted to aid your nest is admirable, my Alpha. Just because you were not taught how, does not mean you were wrong, or that your actions were wrong. You were just untrained. Never forget that." "Thank you," Hiccup whispered. "Hiccup, we better head out before the storm hits," Astrid said. "We still have that one task left." Lorekeeper shuffled back and then bowed to Hiccup. "May the wind forever be under your wings, my Alpha, Lady Alpha." "Yours too, Lorekeeper." The dragons exchanged comments in the old tongue, before Toothless and Stormfly flared their wings and rose into the air, heading for the tallest mountain on Berg. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I love that one. Lawkeeper's MVP, I love that. And I like the Hiccup slowly letting Torgear grow up. He's not babying him, he's training him. I like that. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.